Welcome everyone. We're going to get started here in just a few minutes, so please stay tuned. We're going to wait for a few more people to come on in, so please stay tuned. I see more people popping in. We'll get started in about a minute or so. If you just joined us, we'll be started in about 30 seconds. Welcome. If you've just come in, we'll be going in about 15 seconds or so. Just gonna wait for few more people to pop in. Well, great, everyone. Thank you so much for being here for the program, The Future of Work. We're very excited to have our moderator and our guests, and we'll introduce them in just a moment. My name is Evie Caprell. My colleague is Mark Fitzgerald. He cannot make it today, but he wanted to send his regards, and I'll be your host as well. A few housekeeping notes, if I may. If you'd like to ask a question to the panelists, we ask that you do so in the Q&A section. You could do it in the chat too, but we'll be watching the Q&A sections. And after a little bit, after the program is over, then we will go ahead and we'll ask questions from the audience. I'd like to take a moment to thank one of our sponsors. We have a sponsor, he's our virtual platform sponsor, Jamerson and Bauwens. So thank you so much for your sponsorship. We so appreciate that. One last quick notice for you, our CBC 2020 Chicago Construction Market Survey. We're going to have the results on October 21st. In addition to that, we're going to have a first look into the 2021 economy with two economists. So make sure that you mark your calendars for October 21. So I'd like to take a moment now to introduce Elbert Walters. Elbert?
Thank you, Evie, for that wonderful introduction. Thank you to Chicago Building Congress for this wonderful opportunity. And I would also like to thank all of you who have taken the time out to join us for the day as we discuss a very important topic, leveraging technology for a safer built environment in the COVID-19 era. There have been a number of stories recently about the impact of COVID has had on the local commercial real estate market. One that was in Cranes over the summer noted that, and I quote, "For many in the business, the current downturn is worse than they have ever experienced, more severe than the Great Recession or the devastating crash of the early 1990s. That particular story went on to highlight the rising delinquency rates on commercial mortgage-backed securities, which is a marker for the health of the market. And now this has affected hotels, apartments, offices, retail, and industrial properties, et cetera, and it can go on. And while this pain is not being felt evenly across these markets, it's clear to anyone connected to the building industry that they're feeling the effect right now. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the ripple effect that it has had on the construction industry, and then focus on technology that can be deployed to help commercial properties more safely reopen in the coming months, particularly those offices where companies implemented remote work policies. Before getting started, I would like to take a little bit of time to give a little background of who I am and what Powering Chicago is, so that you can get an understanding and a context for this discussion and understand the panelists' expertise and an opportunity to introduce themselves as we dive into this conversation. My name is Elbert III, and I am Director of Powering Chicago, which is an electrical industry labor management partnership by and between IBEW Local 134 and the Electrical Contractors Association of Chicago. We represent the unionized electrical industry in Chicago and Cook County abroad, which includes approximately 600 electrical contractors and around 12,000 electricians. Our members provide every type of electrical work across the market segments, with construction and maintenance at the commercial properties being one of the major areas of focus. We've certainly been keeping our eye on what has been happening in the commercial real estate market as a result, and have heard more and more from our members in recent months that people that they're working with are looking for solutions that will help revitalize commercial buildings. We know from our work that technology can be a solution to some of the challenges posed by this easily transmittable disease, and can ultimately help strengthen Chicago and the region in coming back from this pandemic. We're hoping to share some of our insights from the industry to help speed that process up to whatever extent possible. We have also set some time aside at the end of the conversation to answer any questions that arise from our discussion. So please make sure you share those questions. Now, to kick things off, I would like to introduce our esteemed panelists for today, and we'll give some time for them to explain a little bit about themselves. First, we have Dan Allen, the Executive Director of Cisco, which is the Construction Industry Service Corporation. Dan?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much, Albert. We do represent about 8,000 union contractors and 140,000 skilled tradesmen and women in the northeastern Illinois, in the 6 counties in northeastern Illinois. And our goal is to advance union construction work and safety, recruit young men and women, and to make different legislation that is favorable for construction in our industry to both our contractors and the skilled men and women that work in our industry. Great to be here. Thanks.
Thank you, Dan. Next, we have Gary, and I'm hoping I'm not messing up this last name, Shamasko.
Perfect.
He's the Project Executive Division Manager for Jamerson and Bauwens Electrical Contractors.
Thank you, Albert. At our firm, we primarily deal in the healthcare segment. However, we are an integrated contractor, and we serve many customers across the Midwest, including various other verticals, healthcare, commercial, and the data center market. With my 36 years of cross-functional experience across the high voltage, critical power, building automation, and security segments, I feel that I can probably offer some assistance to some people listening today, and I'm proud to be part of this team, and thanks for having me.
Thank you, Gary. Next, we have Jean Kent, Director of the IBEW-NECA Technical Institute. Jean?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Elbert. So to tell everybody what the IBEW-NECA Technical Institute is, we are the apprenticeship for IBEW Local 134 and the ECA contractors. So my responsibility here at the school is to make sure that our apprentices go through a proper training so that when they become journeymen and they go out into the field on their own, working for our Local 134 contractors, that they, through that 5-year program, that they become competent electricians that are hitting that workforce with an initiative to be safe and effective electrical workers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kent. I appreciate that. Last but never least, we have Thomas Pedergnana, Vice President of Malko Communication Services. Tom.
Thank you, Elbert. Malko Communication Services is a 94-year-old union electrical contractor based out of Chicago. We have evolved our services from electrical construction to having dedicated AV, security, wireless and DAS, and low voltage divisions. And over the past 6 months and throughout the entire pandemic, our organization has shifted quite a bit of our focus to helping organizations open, create more contactless environments, and work in a hybrid office and remote learning environment or working environment. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time for being here today. We have a lot to talk about on a very important topic. And so we'll start out with this first question for you, Dan. I touched on how the pandemic has impacted the commercial real estate market. What do you expect the impact of the slowdown to be for local construction industry, both short-term and long-term?
Well, Elbert, as you described, the short term is devastating. You put it out very well in the opening remarks, and I'll say in this particular, in our particular region, as negatively the impact has been, it could have been a tremendously amount worse, if not for the collaborative efforts of this industry. So this industry is not new to collaboration. They're not new to the resilience and adaptability that's needed in our industry, both on the contractor and the skilled, union labor workforce. These training centers, joint training centers, have been training, and the way that they came together with innovation before OSHA even had come up with guidelines, this industry on its own, through the different contractor organizations, webinars like this, all the different acronyms that we are used to with different kind, came together, and they developed social distancing. They developed safe work sites. They actually forced OSHA into getting into the ballgame to enforce, because this industry has created a tremendous amount of amazing projects, infrastructure, and done so on time and safely. So they were scrambling with, a few months ago, we didn't even have the PPE and the respirator masks and the different materials that were needed to keep us essential. And then to keep us essential, we needed to work with city officials and come together with early start times that the city of Chicago allowed, with split times, with social distancing in lifts on high rises, things that I would have thought almost impossible. This industry hit it out of the park. So short term, our infrastructure is there. We've new codes, the most advanced renewable energy codes that were just recently passed city of Chicago, and many of the municipalities use it. Building code being redone first time in 60 something years. Electrical code, most energy efficient in the country. So we have an infrastructure in the short term. The long term, without a crystal ball, there's no doubt. In the Chicago business, Moody's Analytics, as you said, they're showing that construction is at the lowest, some of the lowest points in over 5 years. There's definitely going to be some hard times, but as the professionals on this will talk about, the only way companies are coming back is if employees feel safe. And you're going to hear, you're going to hear from Tom, from Gene, and from Gary on all of the innovations that will provide for that safety, and hopefully we can keep this a short-term involvement, and that we can get back to just we were at record highs of cranes and projects, and hopefully we can get back to that, because this industry is reacting to it for its employees and for those that work in buildings.
Yeah, it's very interesting that the union industry, the union construction industry, had a lot of impact, not only just in their own safety and policing themselves, but actually influencing those organizations which control safety. That's very important to me, because it shows that we are leaders in trying to make sure that safety is number one. Okay. Thomas, we're focused today on the role of technology and which it can play in responding to buildings, helping minimize the risk and bringing back employees. What are several examples that you see that technology can promote safety in the workplace during this COVID-19 era?
Thanks, Elbert. There's a variety of solutions that are readily available to create the contactless environment and safer work environment for everybody. It starts with pre-entry wellness checks. There's touchless entry options, a variety of social distancing aids and sensors. Remote collaboration tools are key with people in and out of the office. There's contactless applications and quite a bit more. I'll touch on a few. So thermal cameras is definitely an item that's out there, as well as thermal camera kiosks. So they don't detect COVID, but what they can do is detect elevated temperatures. And it's a great pre-screening method to identify individuals that could be sick in one way or another prior to entering a facility. Also from an AV standpoint, which video conferencing has never been used more in its existence, there's some great products that allow you to enter the workspace, go into a room or a conference room, and navigate all the different AV systems, turn on and off monitors, use audio conferencing from your phone or tablet. So you're not having a high touch point area that multiple people are using to control the different AV systems. There's also ways to wirelessly share your screens, again, using your own device. And enhanced integration for Zoom, Teams, and other virtual meetings is a must-have at this point. You're also combining different systems where you can have occupancy sensors in certain rooms. When somebody enters that space, it automatically turns on all of the key components. So then you can just wirelessly communicate and utilize each of those different features. There's contactless security checkpoints where you could use a badge, a key fob, or even using gestures. There's gesture technology where you wave your hand a certain direction and it'll open a door or close the door. We've seen people using virtual lobbies where instead of having a receptionist or somebody at the entrance of a facility, they have a tablet or other device where somebody in a different remote or safe area, sometimes not even physically at that location, is able to communicate with and talk to, whether it's delivery personnel, employees, guests. They can open and close doors and really handle all of the functions of a receptionist or somebody that would maybe be at that first entrance points remotely, or at least from a safe location. There's real-time workplace awareness applications that uses RTLS technology, which is real-time location services, where they can actually tell and pinpoint not just how many people are in a space, but where exactly they are in that space to ensure that they're under the maximum number of occupants. People are socially distancing as well. Two others that I'll touch on really quick are, there's a lot of UV light options out there. Some are using the white light spectrum that will passively sanitize surfaces. That'll handle some mold, some bacteria, some other ways to clean the surfaces. You can also use UVC lighting, which is similar to what's used in a surgical room to do a deep clean when no one's present, to fully sanitize the surfaces of all germs, viruses, etc. The last item, and I think it's often overlooked, would be wireless connectivity and smart building technologies. So as people are changing the physical layout of their workspace, physically separating desks, moving workstations, occupying conference rooms to be a dedicated workspace, having pervasive wireless connectivity throughout a space, you don't need to constantly rerun wires or make forklift type overhauls to a layout. You can flexibly move people to different stations and different rooms throughout the space. And then just from a smart building technology, there's a lot of machine to machine type of communication where an occupancy sensor or different devices can talk together and work together to ensure that people don't need to interface with those high touch point areas.
Thank you. I'm glad you touched on that because, again, we know that we have to make sure we maintain safe distances, right? And to know that we can actually do physical layouts, but not only physical layout changes in the workplace, we can also implement some of this technology. Gary, you're also in the contracting business. What about you? What do you see that can be added to that particular question?
Well, to complement what Thomas had said, you know, there's a lot of relevant technologies out there. And I think what we really need to put, you know, forefront is a lot of these technologies by themselves really are not that useful. You really need to integrate them. You need to have an integration partner that can tie them together. So a lot of these, you know, without repeating what he said, there's power in putting them together. So if you look at, we've heard a lot about, you know, thermal cameras and scanning people coming in. We now know that temperature is only one part of the equation. However, when you take the right product that can be accurate, and you can link it back to not only your access control systems or your hoteling systems or your reservation systems, now you can keep that safe distance between, you know, people entering a property, whether they're your team members or they're visitors, and we can keep that safe distance. And Thomas also touched on, you know, various sensors that can count people. In this society, I think we're kind of afraid to go and count people, but if you look at your favorite retail establishment or hotel you go into, we've been counting people forever. Now we're doing it in a different fashion. Nobody really wants to be on a camera from that perspective, but if we can, you know, monitor and guide that flow through a facility or, you know, the use of that facility, whether it be a you know, conference room or anything else. And when you go back to contactless, yeah, we use these little devices right here that we all have in our pocket every day. And when you go into some hotels, you can actually, you don't have to go to a front desk, you can check in and you have access readers. We mentioned Wave. Well, you can also go and do a twist with your hand and have Bluetooth connectivity. And all of this stuff that's been coming together for years is really of age now. And with the right integration partner, you can connect it all together and make it work. And, you know, when you get down to, you know, the way about sanitizing or keeping something safe, you have to, again, select the right products. There's a lot of, you know, mystery out there right now and a lot of people trying to make a quick hit. And so we like to call it more of an infrastructure wellness. And infrastructure wellness can be carried all the way from, you know, the power in your building, all the way back down to your low voltage, you know, your wireless and your connectivity, because is a system set up to handle this? Because when you deploy these technologies, you really have to know where, you know, what you have and know how you're going to connect and bring everything together across the various platforms. And then you need to train your people too, because it needs to be, you know, a technology that works with the platforms they're used to integrating to, whether it's Zoom we're on today, it's Teams, any kind of, you know, remote video conferencing, and ways for them to interact in a safe and a you know, a free type environment.
Wow. One of the things that I think is also important to stress is the fact that you said that there has to be an integration partner. Would that include, and if you can expound about it just a little bit more, finding out what technology is specific to that particular partner? I'm sure that in some cases, having the cell phone might not be the best option. And vice versa, having a key fob might not be the best partner. So how do you go about making sure that technology is specific to that particular partner?
Well, it's a broad brush question, Elbert. I'll answer it this way. And so when you look at it, I mentioned a cell phone. We all have like a Prox badge that we'll go and access to get into someplace. There's wearables now, whether it be a, you know, smartwatch or it be some kind of fob or bracelet you wear around you know, your wrist that's, you know, near field communication or RFID embedded. All those technologies work. Again, these technologies by themselves, you know, are hard to really go and deploy, or if you, let's say you buy a box type solution. So when you look at across, you know, your electrical contractor partners, whether they be, you know, high voltage or low voltage, they play a role. And a lot of those contractors, you know, have integration partners, somebody that can do, you know, the smarts, the programming, the coding. And we hear about coding for, you know, for computers and to make, you know, the internet work. Well, coding is really, you know, there's computers behind everything we touch nowadays. And so you have to have somebody to write that script to connect, you know, brand A to brand B to brand C and have that seamless integration. When Thomas mentioned walking into a conference room and you have something that turns on, a lot of times we get lucky, but that can be a seamless integration where it just works, like we're used to turning on a light switch now. And a lot of that stuff works. You know, sensors with lights as we walk through someplace, we have down to a science, but to control everything else in our building or our work environment has not always been easy till the last couple of years, and you need to have somebody that knows how to integrate it together. If you work back to the mechanical systems, we've all converged, and you work together with your mechanical partners too. And so when you look at, we touched on UV lights, but those UV lights probably want to be on a schedule. And it's not just an on-off timer, but they want to sync so you know you're not turning a UV light on when you have somebody in a space, because that can be harmful to somebody's health. You also can install UV lights in your ductwork, and you can have misting systems, which we've all heard about too. And don't discount, you know, our mechanical partners too, because when you bring this all together between, you know, electrical contracting, mechanical contracting, and software integration, you kind of put it all together. So it's never really about the product, it's about the solution and how we connect it together. And, you know, the concern is a lot of these things have a cost to them. We got to make sure we're deploying the appropriate cost for the ask and for that environment. And typically we got to make sure it's something that will survive and will benefit our partners beyond COVID. That could be useful, you know, to their application.
Great, that's wonderful. Great information. So where do you see these current technologies being deployed? And I'll get this to you, Thomas. This is directed towards you.
Okay, so they're being deployed everywhere. Hospitals, concert venues, indoor, outdoor, workplaces, schools, retail facilities, essentially any location that needs to provide a safe space and allow for their business to continue and thrive, or at least survive during these times. So essentially everywhere they are being deployed. It's just that, as Gary mentioned, the solutions do need to be specific and customized to the location and to their intended use. It's not just one product works everywhere. It's definitely not square peg, round hole. This is, you need to have a custom solution that makes sense, again, as Gary referred, now, and then also have some relevance in the future.
I was just taking notes here, and you spoke about specific and customizable solutions. I'm sure, and the fact that it's not one size fits all, correct? So what are some of the challenges that you see implementing some of these technologies and their limitations?
So a lot of the challenges relate directly to the person in need of the solution, or the company that's proposing or installing the solution. So this is all new, right? You've heard the term new normal. It's also, even though there might be some existing technologies, they're being used in new ways, sometimes creative and effective ways. But what we do is we'll go in and perform a needs assessment. And again, Gary touched on this very well, is we need to understand how that solution can work for the venue. So taking the time to actually talk through the system and developing protocols, using a thermal camera as an example, installing a thermal camera and walking away does not make the workspace safer. It does not have the associated protocols and processes for the venue. You need to understand, if you do identify somebody with a elevated temperature, what do you do next? Is there a secondary screening? Do you ask them to be pulled to the side? What is that next step? So it's very important to go beyond the technology. That's first and foremost. Obviously, costs is another big challenge, right? So people are trying to find ways for their business to still work, and now they're being asked to implement some solutions that they did not budget for. So understanding exactly what the needs are and finding a solution that either integrates with existing infrastructure and or can help them going forward is very important to making this work from concept to implementation to long-term use.
Yeah. Gary, and again, because you're actually seeing some of this, what have you seen as far as the limitations or issues regarding this technology? Limitations.
I think it comes down to really, boil it down to one word: education. And so when you look at the technology itself is come of age. It doesn't have the limitations. It's really the education with the entity to know what they need or help them understand, the product and how it can, integrate. And a lot of times we don't like to draw analogies or have examples. When Thomas said a lot of this stuff is deployed now, when you really connect those dots and think about it, if you go into a major sports arena, you go into some healthcare facilities, and you ride on a train and everything else too. You see some of these things that just work. And with some leading technologies coming, we need to understand what kind of infrastructure we have so stuff can connect. And, right now, yeah, you're really limited by how we understand this stuff. But education is a tough thing to really, have people understand it. I mean, you think of how it was 10 years ago when a smartphone came out and you had a computer in your pocket, and, what do I really do for it? Now you got a computer on your wrist. But people are very comfortable with it, right? And so it's really education to go and let them know, how it works and how that solution is going to integrate.
Yeah, it's amazing. I remember having the cell phone, the BlackBerry, and people used to get their emails on the phone, and we thought that was so crazy. And here it is now. We're so used to that technology that we can't live without it, right? So let me ask you this. We spoke about some of the technologies that are out there. And again, I know I'm focusing more so on the contractors, but I think it's important that we get this information out. What are some of the new or emerging technologies that you see that hasn't been discussed today?
Well, that's kind of a tough one. There's a lot of, and I don't think in this format we should really go down the path of stuff that is, let's say, space age, stuff that's not out there yet. In our opinion, we think that the enhancement of wearables, and we can define wearables in a lot of different ways, are going to really help us interact. And when you look at a lot of these technologies, you mentioned a couple of those fields before where they've been deployed. We've done them there. We're very concerned about customer satisfaction and engagement scores across certain fields. Healthcare being one of them. We care about that in the entertainment industry. Disney's done a great job with that. But when you look back to the commercial office space, how do we funnel people where you have the most people in one space, and that's in that commercial building or that commercial office building? You look at brick and mortar shopping and everything else too is another, example too. So that's where, we really got to look at expanding some of the different stuff that's coming. And I think wearables or, some kind of near field communication is going to help with that. And there's other, if I had to touch on one thing, we hear about 5G now. And 5G, just not a faster smartphone, but 5G is being deployed. I trust Thomas is very engaged in this, but across the major cities right now, there's been stuff that's being installed for a few years ahead of the deployment of the product. And when stuff talks, that stuff is all going to come together. And we talk about self-driving cars, and not to diverge much, but you can't do a self-driving car just on GPS. It's got to be GPS, 5G is a big key, and everything else. But what that's going to unlock is some other connectivity with what we say with all these things for everything to start talking to. And I'm excited about 5G and the build out of the infrastructure. And even though there may be some hiccups from what we're going through right now, short term, Dan had mentioned earlier, I think there's going to be a lot of stuff, we reinvent ourselves as a society, and we always rise to the occasion. I think there's going to be some exciting times moving forward, for whatever the next chapter ends up being and how we grow from this.
Great. Again, taking notes. I wanted to make sure that I take some of this information down because this is great information. Thomas, you as well. Is there any emerging technology that you see that might not have been discussed yet or that are on the edge of reaching customers?
Yeah, definitely. I'd like to first expand upon Gary's mention of 5G. and really just more high-speed connectivity. That's going to be the emerging technology, and that's going to fuel all of the other emerging technologies and solutions and just new ways of life. So we talk about a new normal. 5G, advanced communications, we're on the verge of a better normal, because that's going to facilitate not just the self-driving cars, but really any technological advancement, whether it's for getting back to work, health and safety, or just transmitting and having access to large amounts of data. That's going to really drive what happens in 1 to 5, 10 years from now, is just that high speed, ubiquitous wireless connectivity. Wearables is another item that Gary mentioned. I've seen how there's wearables that you could have in the workspace that will cause alerts if you're within 6 feet of somebody else, or whatever parameter you set. So if everybody has this wearable, then it can reinforce social distancing, whether it's by accident if you're walking near somebody, or you're just not necessarily caring about that socially distance in the workspace. So there's wearables that can help alert you and really remind people of how close they are in proximity to other people. It can also track how many people are in the office. There's going to be more autonomous solutions, so cleaning robots that are going to go around the office. I think really ways to automate these processes that we're stepping into now, and then create a more of a back-end application infrastructure to tie a lot of these different systems together. That's really going to be where all these technologies are going to emerge from, and just be a part of our everyday existence.
Yeah. That's interesting. We're talking about technology, and I know that we have to be able to prepare those who are in the electrical industry and educate them. So this next question is for Gene. I want to give you this. We're speaking about technology and how it can be installed in these offices, and just really broadly, in order to make a safe return to work. What is the unionized electrical industry's capacity to educate and train its members to implement some of this technology that we're talking about today?
So, one of the ways that we're able to quickly respond is because of the partnership between ECA and Local Union 134, is that they've created our training fund, number one. Number two, they've, over the years, made the right decisions on hiring the right people to be in these positions to educate their apprentices moving into the future. And also they've made the decision to invest in those employees here at the school. Currently I have 4 employees, including myself, with master level degrees in education design and curriculum. So at a drop of a hat, our staff is ready to change and alter and update any curriculum that we might pass on to our apprentices, including our journeymen as well. We also develop training for our journey persons. So any of this new technology, while we'd like to get it to our apprentices, sometimes that's not the best launching pad, and sometimes it's a class for our journey persons where they come back and get re-educated in something, a brand new technology, or just how certain technology has been altered and used in a different way, as Thomas and Gary have been pointing out. A lot of this technology has been around. It's just being used in a new and different way, something that our members are not used to. But here at the school, we're quickly able to adapt and create that curriculum because we're not beholden to anybody that we're waiting for. We don't purchase our curriculum. We create it all here in-house. So that gives us a level of flexibility to create something in general almost overnight. Thomas and I have been on the phone recently about the communications world, and that's the idea of that relationship between the contractors and labor that benefit both sides, is that we're in constant communication of, hey, what are you guys doing today? What's new and different? What are you seeing on the horizon? So that we can develop that curriculum and be ready for a big launch across the whole industry.
Okay. Well, speaking about, you know, what we can do in the industry, and I want to know that we're talking about the entire industry. So this one is going to be for you, Dan. So can you talk a little bit about the importance of providing an accelerated level of training across the entire construction industry?
Absolutely. I think both, you know, Tom, Gary, and now even Gene hit on just how important the training is and just how important the collaboration is for every one of these industries. The mechanical systems and that is both Tom and Gary talked about, the new normal in saying it's going to be a better normal. I agree. And the new thing now is going to be healthy buildings are going to be the new minimum. Healthy buildings from, you know, the ground all the way up, not just touchless systems. You're talking about ventilation systems and interactions of all these different systems and the invitation of 5G. So even prior to COVID, there was a move to double the rate of fresh air coming into buildings. There was reports that more than 57% of the so-called sick buildings were a result of that. So there was already upgrading of ventilation systems. They were showing that the rate of return of value was that workers were as much as, 30, 40% more productive with that. And as buildings now, the healthy building and the better normal are designed with this collaboration of the contractors that see the demand that businesses need to bring that safety level to their employees and to the people that occupy, tenant spaces, and collaborating with all the different building trades and contractors, just like Gene had said. Every one of these have these apprenticeship training programs where there's joint education. A journeyman or woman has more hours on the job and in the classroom than you do for a college degree. And then the continuing ed is going to be imperative that we bring this. And even in that, when you talk about work going forward, one good sign was even last year, the renovation of existing buildings, and that was actually about nearly 47% of the billable hours from the architectural and accounting firms. Look at the old post office and all this existing building blueprints that we have now with the new technologies and the skilled contractors and workforce to come in and really apply these safe new environments to these existing buildings. That footprint, I think, will help us to carry forward, through some of this, downturn that we're definitely going to see. So we may see that existing stock renovated with all these exciting new technologies and safe, rather than the new construction that might lag until we get a little better handle and there's a little more security on the investor side.
Right. Well, speaking of investors, what are some of the problems, if any, that you see for those who don't want to implement or move forward with new technology?
It's going to be now more imperative than ever. So choosing the right contractors and the right employees to implement this. I mean, businesses, they spend how many millions on a 30-second ad on the identity of their business, their product, their brand. And it comes down to that if they're going to spend it, be a dollar wise, penny foolish in this area, it's not going to go well. And they know that. In most businesses, just like the contractors collaborate and want safety with the unions and their partners, businesses, for the most part, are saying that as well. They want to keep their employees happy. They want them to be productive, happy, and they're going to invest in choosing that right investment up front to bring these systems in properly is going to be more imperative than ever. And those that don't, I feel that, not only the chance, and they're risking the chance of, God forbid, their workers, occupants get sick, the litigation, and actually their brand being diminished over these. So I think they know that, and that's even more important that we bring this collaborative, new technologies going forward.
So I'm understanding that it's important for the business, customers, to understand that it's important for them to invest in the training for this new technology, correct?
Absolutely, and we see them doing that.
Yes. Well, I want to switch gears just a little bit. I know we've heard about some of the technology that can be implemented But this question I want to give to Eugene. Can you talk a little bit about how the technology can be integrated into broader building automated systems?
Well, both Thomas and Gary kind of touched on this already, in that right now I think what's happening in the market is that people are pushing this technology in a single use capacity. So the thermal imaging cameras, people are putting thermal imaging cameras in their entryways, and they're setting up that technology and the software behind it to see individuals with a temperature, a certain range. It'll give a warning to, let's say, a security guard or whoever's monitoring that entrance, and they'll pull that person off to the side, and then, they go through their process of, a checkpoint as far as could they potentially have COVID or not. Where it's going to move forward is that's going to be integrative in the entire building. And it won't be an individual necessarily making that decision about somebody entering a building. It'll be a process. It'll be like that wearable, like they're talking about. So you'll pass an entryway, that camera will hit you, and it'll know where you're going in your building. So it's a 100-story building. It knows you're going to the 55th floor. If you're the only one scheduled to be there on that particular day, they may let you in the building and may let you go up to that building. If you're on a floor with 100 other people, there'll be software, there'll be things in place, integrative technologies that will make a decision based on allowing you in the building or not. Right now, it's just kind of a 1-point or 2-point integration system. But we can move into a situation where if you take all these technologies and surround it with a robust software system to manage your building, you would know where everybody is in the building, exactly where they're at, what their physical condition might be in where it will turn eventually. It'll be a life safety benefit. Let's say there's a fire in the building. Currently, you walk into a fire department, shows up for a fire alarm. They walk in and they go to their panel, and it identifies where that fire could potentially be at. In the future, I could see where they'll go and access a panel, and it'll say that the 55th floor, there's a sprinkler head has gone off, or there's a smoke detector. We have 37 people on that building. So the firemen will know right there as they walk in the building where the fire is, what's going on, what device has tripped this alarm, and how many people are directly impacted on that floor. So the information that is going to be allowed, like we keep talking about with the 5G, is going to be immense after people get past this 1-point or 2-point solutions that they're doing now. Once it becomes fully integrated, there won't be an end to what is possible, really.
That's great information. And I'm hearing that, again, there's words like protocols, things of that nature, which means that there must be some type of partnership. So my next question is really to everyone. How can business owners, managers, tenants, and et cetera, assess their needs when it comes to implementing this particular technology, and what should they be thinking about? And we'll start with you, Thomas.
So first off, they need to be open to actually implementing the technologies. As Gene alluded to, people traditionally will do one thing at a time, how it's always been. I think first and foremost, they need to be open to actually implementing the right technology the right way. And they need to do that by talking to the right partner. So you may have been working with a company that pulls in their phone cables, and their specialty might not necessarily be in the integration of some of these advanced technologies. So they need to really reach out and partner with the right company and go through the list of questions of not just what am I going to buy, but what do I actually need and what am I going to accomplish? There's definitely a needs assessment. We have a form that we typically send out that has some questions that forces the potential customer or partner to really dive deep and understand not just what they think they want, but just to help them identify what they actually need to solve their issue or to allow customers or employees back in their space.
Great, wonderful. Gene, do you have any input on this particular?
I don't know. I would have to say, I'd have to go back to education. We keep saying this and remove the ignorance from what's available out there is key and number one. Finding a good contractor, a good partner. I like the term partner that is there looking out after your needs and understands the market, understands what's available, and kind of will bring that or remove that veil of ignorance about what potential technologies, solve the problems that your particular, building or space or location is needing.
Okay. Gary, any thoughts?
Sure, just a few. And so we boil it down and let's put out 3 words for the audience to really remember today. So we mentioned education, we mentioned wireless. Let's put a 3rd one out there, analytics. And so when you take what Thomas and Gene have said, you kind of put it together, there's analytics platforms, and analytics means something different to everybody, but there's smart building analytics where you can not only monitor, anything from your power to your wireless to your, automation systems, but it looks back at your mechanical systems too, and you're assessing that health of that building. So when you look at that smart building, there's an analytics platform that incorporates weather and everything else. There's many people out there that do this, but that's something else that will kind of, pull all these things together from a monitored or a remote, a cloud-based application. And when as we want to know more about our buildings, and we have, less people running our buildings, or a generation that may not want to go and run these buildings, that becomes more critical. And it's really critical when you start pulling all these systems together. And we can't really forget about, our friends in the building automation security space. And so Thomas and I touched on security a little bit and access control. But when you look at building automation, there's a lot of things that are behind the scenes. Just like you may get a transformer, a piece of switchgear that, hey, my lights come on today and I don't worry about it. Touched on infrastructure wellness earlier. That piece of a gear may be 40, 50 years old and it's still running along, but then we have that critical failure the one day. Well, your building automation is the same way. We're upgrading access to the building, but do we upgrade the way that we stage our chillers, or we run our fans, or our different boxes around the space? And when you look back to control it, whether you have, whatever your favorite topic is or partner is for AV control, for all those AV needs, and you're controlling other stuff in your space, it really, I think, coming down in the future is going to be the heart of that true smart building is going to be something that operates in every commercial space now, whether we believe it or not, or we're aware of it or not, is that building automation system, building automation security system. And a lot of that stuff is in dire need of an upgrade to get it into that IP world, or that modern world, so you can, talk and communicate with all these things too. And so I think right there is again, a lot of things we've said, but you gotta look at that as a whole holistic system. And remember those 3 words too, with education, wireless, and analytics.
Yeah. Well, I want to make sure that if Dan has an opinion on this, that he gets the opportunity. Again, what should the business owners, managers, and individuals that are responsible for these particular buildings be thinking about?
Well, I love the word infrastructure wellness, and I also love the, as you put it down, education and the analytics and all that coming together. And as Gene said, picking a partner. So just like, you fall off, you break your, your arm, or you have stitches, you'll go to the nearest. But if it's a compound fracture, you need surgery, screws, you're going to really want to make sure you're going to the right contractor who's employing the right workers. And my former job, I was a code enforcement officer with the city of Chicago at the high level, and I saw the amount of contractors. And in this space now, just like there will be, on the internet, you can take this and, COVID will go away, or you could take this. There will be a lot of bad actors in this space. So I believe the most important thing you can do is choose a quality contractor who's employing quality skilled men and women that have completed a Department of Labor apprenticeship program, that have these skills, and that will come in here and really assess your building individually. And just as you know, Tom, Gary, and even Gene said, are a partner with you that will try to help simplify what is a complicated thing for you, but you'll be able to trust. I think what is at the beginning, Tom said Malko was 97 years a company. So, many of these companies have that longevity and have that professionalism. So that, I think, is imperative for business owners to take into account.
Right. Well, I mean, again, I think that Thomas and Gary have been the quintessential experts in the new technology. So for me, I want to pose this question to you too. In your opinion, how can stakeholders in Chicagoland's commercial real estate community quicken the pace at which technology is used to promote the workplace safety? And Thomas.
So I thanks, Albert. I touched on a little of this with the last question, but I really think just taking action now, reaching out to a partner or talking to colleagues to start to be informed and understand what's out there and take that first step, because you could have meetings all day long and talk about if you should do this, if you have the budgets, et cetera, and time's just going to go on. So I really think the most important step is really that first step, is to contact somebody who's in the industry that has experience, that you can ask questions and you can understand what's available to then actually take an actual next step towards implementing the technology. And really don't be afraid to deviate from how you did things in the past, because as we've mentioned quite a few times, the world and the business environment is different now. So being open to some different technologies, maybe even talking to a new partner that is specialized in the system they're looking for, to really work out what is best, what's going to make sense now, and then definitely what can also be of use in the future.
Okay. Gary, same to you. How can we use technology to quicken the pace to return back to the workplace safely?
I agree with what Thomas said, and to be added to it, I would ask people to be cautious. You're not going to install or deploy all these systems now. You have to start someplace, and you have to have a migration moving forward. And I would also ask that, as we said earlier, there's a lot of unique solutions out there, and everybody wants to be part of a solution. Everybody has something to offer. I would ask them to do a show and tell, and seeing is believing. If you're going to go with some of these higher and integrated technologies, show us that you've actually deployed them and show us that they work. Because a lot of people say they can do it, but there's a few people that have done it. And so that's what I would put out and say, hey, you need to really assess, develop a plan moving forward, no matter what the time frame is. You're starting from someplace, and then look at some references and see where this company's been successful at, or your partner's been successful at.
Great, thank you. We're nearing the end of our discussion, and I want to make sure that we leave enough time to address some of the questions that the audience has. And it looks like we might have some. Can we hear from the audience, please?
Absolutely. I'll be glad to share. Some of the questions that you have that were listed, you've already answered because you guys are so knowledgeable. We do have one here from Luke. I'm interested to hear a little more about ventilation technology that's being utilized today and going forward.
Yeah, so I know that both Thomas and Gary touched on this. So Gary, is there any more information that you can provide about that particular piece of technology?
I would say that you should reach out to your partner, whoever your mechanical or building contractor is, and talk to them about that. A couple things for this conversation without going deeper into the question is, you really need to have an air exchange, a positive air exchange. So you need fresh air, introduced to a building. You need to exchange that air. You need to do something to really go and sanitize and to filter, that conditioned space.
Okay, and Thomas?
Yeah, Gary covered it nicely. I think you start with your existing partner, ask the right questions, and follow the steps that he outlined.
It's 1 o'clock.
Great. Any other questions?
We don't have any other that are submitted, so perhaps you have some final thoughts from your panelists.
Great, that's wonderful. That means that we've covered a lot of information in this amount of time. That was a lot for us. So in this order, we'll go with Dan, Jean, Gary, and then Thomas. Provide some final thoughts for today's discussion.
Well, you know, I'd like to give a shameless plug to Powering Chicago and actually Jamerson and Bauwens. I'm on a board of Gateway to Learning, which is a adults with disabilities facility in Chicago. And COVID naturally knocked them out. They were providing all kinds of video technology to the stay-at-home world with Special Olympics students and all that. And they came in to help them renovate on this little budget, and they volunteered their time, as well as Joe Bathy Plumbing. This industry came together and is helping areas where they have compromised health, came in there to make their building, again, that new healthy building, which is the, you know, the new minimum. So I just want to thank the partners, because this is imperative to how we live in all kinds of society. So thank you all, and what you do here is very important. So thank you.
Thank you. Jean?
So I would have to say that we talked a little bit about building a partnership or choosing a partner when it comes to launching these new technologies. And I think it could probably be, for certain individuals, a daunting task to even begin that decision-making process. And maybe you don't have the connections in the industry to even begin to know where to find somebody that would be able to support you and point you in the right direction. If that's the case, you know, I'm going to say that Local 134 and the ECA contractors are your first point of contact if you're looking for an electrical contractor. But beyond that, and then when you're making the decision on who to go with, let's say you get 3 or 4 bids on a particular project, look back and make sure you vet those individuals, those contractors, or those potential partners, and find out what they're doing to help their employees stay on the cutting edge. This industry, the ECA contractors and Local 134, have a partnership in which they're imparting that inherently in the industry. So all of the employees of Local 134 in the ECA contractors are going through that almost a forced education process in order to keep their skills up to date and cutting edge. And like I said before, with how the school works, is that we're constantly updating the curriculum to make sure that we have that opportunity for our employees or our workers to learn what's on that cutting edge.
Yes. Gary?
I would say take the time to understand the solution and the offer. Don't be afraid to think differently. Assess your infrastructure wellness. Remember those 3 words we mentioned earlier: educate, wireless, and analytics.
Great, thank you. I made sure I took note of that, because that's definitely something that I think is very important for customers to make sure that you know, they implement whenever they're looking for vetting any future work. Thomas?
Well, first I'll add 2 additional words to the 3 words that Gary's been throwing out there.
All right, I got my pen ready.
So innovation and communication, or even collaboration, I think are also going to be very key. So sticking with how we've done things in the past, utilizing old technologies or trying to do the same thing over and over and expecting a different results, that's definitely not going to work now and going forward. You know, we're bracing for some challenging times, and there's a lot of people out there, a lot of great companies that can really help drive down costs and help innovate and create some solutions that can really help people get back to work and get back to work safely. And specifically in the commercial real estate space, you know, any of these technologies that are implemented in a building as a whole or in the tenant space, you have to think it's going beyond just the safety. Obviously, safety is the most important piece, but there's also some tenant retention elements There's employee retention elements to create that safe space and have access to the necessary and cutting edge technology now. And that's also going to help them prepare for the future as 5G continues to roll out, as other innovations or just necessary technologies and advancements are available. Taking those steps now is critically important.
Well, again, I want to thank you for educating me on today. There was wonderful information that was out, and I'm sure, just like myself, that everyone that was able to join us today got some great information. Learning how technology and rearranging and re-implementing new thoughts into what is the current workplace can actually help in making the return to work safe. On behalf of all of the panelists today and Power in Chicago, I'd like to thank you for attending. I also want to make sure I thank the Chicago Building Congress for hosting this event. Thank you so much for allowing us this platform to get this most vital information out. Hopefully you leave today's conversation having learned a few things with a better sense of how we can adapt to the pandemic and overcome a couple of challenges that are currently facing Chicago. If you have any comments or would just like to connect and discuss a little bit more about what we discussed today, please do not hesitate to reach out. We've listed the contact page on Power in Chicago's website. And if you'd like more information about some of the technologies that we've discussed today and how they can be applied, to your workspace, you can find more information at powerinchicago.com/contactless office. My email and all of the panelists' email are also listed. So if you'd like to reach out, I'm sure that everyone here would love to hear from you. And again, thank you, and I hope you have a wonderful afternoon. Evie?
Thank you so much. Oh, that's okay. Thank you so much, Elbert, and the panelists. Fascinating information, and I'm sure it was very informative for our attendees. So I want to take a moment to thank all of you. Elbert for being our moderator and a great CBC member, of course. Thank you. Dan Allen, great member too. He's on our board of directors. Jean and Thomas and Gary, just so great to have you on board and also learn more about what you are suggesting and your expertise that you shared. So thank you all. Remember, October 21st is our next event. Watch our CBC website and you'll be able to sign up. Thank you. You all have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.